ver. Buenas noches, Santa Bárbara. ¿Dónde está mi gente latina? Muy bien, muy bien. Desde que yo me nombré director del Festival de Cine de Santa Bárbara, ha sido muy importante para mí a dar homenaje a nuestra gente latina. Y esta noche es muy especial tener a Zoe Saldaña. Bienvenida, Zoe. So now for those who don't speak our language, welcome everybody. During these times, we're partnering with Direct Relief to raise support for our sister city, Los Angeles, affected by the fire. They will be matching our donations up to $100,000 to double our impact. So Direct Relief has booths outside and every night during the festival. And please be generous. Donate whatever you can, and all the monies are going to support our sister city, Los Angeles. A very special thank you to Lexus, our new presenting sponsor, and the sponsor of tonight's evening. I've been driven around a pretty fancy Lexus, and they're pretty awesome. So check it out. There are Lexus vehicles during the festival in front of the Film Center where you can sign up for a text drive. Thank you to Manitou Fun and the support of Nora McNeely Hurley and Michael Hurley. It means a lot. The board of directors as well. You're in amazing hands. I actually, before I introduce Scott, I should say, I spoke in Spanish. It's always been, when I started the film festival, I instituted one award, and is tonight's award, the American Riviera Award, and is to celebrate an American artist who has made a humongous impact in cinema. And Zoe Saldaña fits the bill to a T. And what's the most important, and it means the most to me, is that I'm a Latino. I was born and raised in Panama. And to have an American Latina like Zoe Saldaña being celebrating in this stage tonight is I'm so emotional, I cannot even tell you what it means to me. Bravo, Zoe, you mean the world to us. Thank you for being here tonight. So to take over the evening, you're in incredible hands with Scott Feinberg. He is the Hollywood Reporter's executive editor of awards coverage and host of its Awards Chatter podcast. But most importantly, he's an amazing friend to Santa Barbara, to the Santa Barbara Film Festival, and to me. Please give a warm hand to Scott Feinberg.
Thank you, Roger. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another very exciting night here at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. Tonight, it's my great honor to be joined by a tremendously gifted actress who is marking her 25th year on screens big and small, Zoe Saldaña. Zoe has been described by the Los Angeles Times as, quote, the queen of the film franchise, close quote, having been at the center of the Avatar, Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Star Trek franchises. And she is the first and only actor or actress to have starred in 4 films that grossed more than $2 billion worldwide. But she is also so much more, as we were reminded in 2024 by her remarkable performance acting, singing, and dancing in the French filmmaker Jacques Audiard's highly unconventional Spanish-language musical, Emilia Perez. For those of you who are still catching up or need a reminder, Zoe plays an underappreciated criminal defense attorney in Mexico who is recruited to help a cartel leader with a top secret mission. Following the film's world premiere at last May's Cannes Film Festival, the film received an 11-minute standing ovation, and the festival's jury presented Zoe and 3 of her co-stars with their Best Actress prize. The film has since gone on to receive 13 Oscar nominations, a record for a film not in the English language, and only 1 behind the record for any film. One of those nominations is for Best Original Song for the tune El Mal, which Zoe so memorably performs in the film. Another is for Best Supporting Actress, in recognition of Zoe's performance, and it is the first Oscar nomination of her career. And given that she has already won Golden Globe and Critics' Choice Awards, it might just be the beginning of some even more exciting things to come. In the meantime, though, we are so lucky to have her here with us in Santa Barbara, and before we ask her up to the stage, I want to invite you to take a look at a montage really beautifully prepared by our great Mike McGee, highlighting the work of this year's recipient of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival's American Riviera Award. Let's take a look at the career, some of the career of Zoe Saldaña. Please welcome to the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, Zoe Saldaña. Welcome.
It's a full house, you guys.
Totally.
So many of us live here in Santa Barbara.
2,000 Santa Barbarians here tonight? Not bad. Well, thank you so much for being here. And we're going to go right back to the beginning, first of all. Can you share with us where you were born and raised and what your folks did for a living?
I was born in Passaic, New Jersey, to a Dominican and Puerto Rican mom and a Dominican father. My family has been in New York since 1961. My grandmother immigrated from the Dominican Republic the year that Rafael Leonidas Trujillo, our dictator, was assassinated. And they were granting passages for Dominicans to work in the United States. And my grandmother was that first wave of Dominicans that arrived in New York City, which later it became Washington Heights. I grew up in New York partially, and then in the Dominican Republic too.
I was going to say, I think it was, I mean, there was a difficult thing. You lost your father when you were 9. I know that led to the next few years being in the Dominican Republic. And I think, was it there that you got very into dance?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Ballet became the most therapeutic, medicinal kind of thing in my life. The thing with grief is that it's all about pain management, you know, and when my father passed away suddenly, my mom was 30, my sisters and I were 8, 9, and 10, and everybody was going through their process of grief. And there were moments in which my mom just couldn't get out of bed. She was so sad. But she knew enough to keep us busy. And she immediately enrolled me and my younger sister in ballet, my older sister in art and volleyball. And right after school, we would have a tutor that was teaching us to speak properly, you know, academically Spanish. And then after those sessions were done, then we would go straight into our afternoon activities, and we kept ourselves busy. But ballet became this cave, this experience for me that was all immersive. And I did it every single day, sometimes, 5-6 hours a day.
So at 17, you come back to the U.S. in time for, I think, junior year of high school, and dance continued here?
Yes, I kept dancing. But by the time I was 18 and we were already back in New York City, I was starting to realize that I had reached my ceiling with ballet, and I wasn't going to be able to shatter my glass ceiling with it. And it was heartbreaking, but I didn't have the feet. And that, I'm just happy that I was able to be honest with myself. And then it was just about this reflection on, okay, I can't dance because to the level that I would want to pursue, but I still like to be on stage. What else about being on stage can I explore? And then I realized I've never utilized my voice as an instrument to tell stories. I was using my body to tell stories, but never to speak, you know? So I started auditioning. Well, not really. There was a Capezio store on 57th in New York. It was the only Capezio store. And I was allowed to go there into the city. We lived in Queens, to go buy my shoes and then take the train and come back home. They were holding auditions in this little theater when I was like on my way to the train station. And I was with my older sister and I said, if you don't tell mom that I'm gonna go in here and like audition for this, then I won't tell mom that you're smoking cigarettes. So I did. I auditioned for a show called The Wiz, and I got a call back, and that's when we had to tell my mom. And then she came with me and my older sister to the callback, and I'm auditioning for the role of the Scarecrow. I didn't get the role of the Scarecrow, but I booked to be, in the cast for, dancing and doing all these other, parts. And that was the initiation of sort of my acting.
What was a program called Faces?
Oh my gosh. So Faces in New York, cities like New York hold these amazing internship programs that the government, has with public schools. I think it's with public schools, maybe not for private schools, but it was mainly for public schools. And if you had enough credits and you were mainly taking AP classes in your junior and last year of school, they would let you enroll in this internship program, which meant that instead of you going to school certain days a week, you would work in whatever field that you would want to pursue. Excuse me. I had interviewed for 2 places, one for the 92nd Street Y, and 2 for this theater program out of Maimonides Medical Center in Fort Hamilton, Brooklyn, called Faces. And I chose to go to Faces, and it was this program that was created by this caseworker, this social worker called Susan Montez, who's no longer with us, and she started it in the 70s, and it was just a way to get kids off the streets. She created this little space where kids would come, and if they were suffering from, domestic violence, drug abuse, gang violence, teenage pregnancy, they would come to this place. They would write scenes based on their life experiences, and they would perform them in jails and schools and juvenile halls, hospitals, retirement homes. We went as far as to travel to Los Angeles. We came to Hollywood with Faces. And we also went to Germany, to the south of Germany, through a friendship program between the United States and Germany. And we performed for refugees of Kosovo. So I was there in this theater program for 5 years. And I feel like I really learned a lot from being in this program.
Now, yeah, it sounds like an amazing, that's the reason arts education and all that is so important. Where along the line, though, I think you branched out from Faces and were doing other theater and stuff. What brought you to the attention of the person who would become your first agent?
Wow. I was dating this guy when I was in Faces, and nobody wanted me to be with this guy. And my sister, while I was a part of Faces in Brooklyn, my sister, Cicely, was a part of that New York Youth Theater, which is the place where I went and I had booked The Wiz. I didn't end up doing The Wiz because of my ballet commitments. Now I'm taking it back. I'm going all over the place, but let me know if I lose you. So when I called them and they gave me a part to be in the cast, I said, thank you so much, but I can't do it because I have ballet commitments. But my younger sister, she's just like me. She dances and she can do all these things. Well, Cicely ended up being a part of that theater troupe in the city for like 5 years while I went along and I joined Faces in Brooklyn. In order for them to get me away from this guy, I guess, Cicely convinced me, along with my mom, to go do Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in her theater. So I did it. I ended up having a lot of fun. I dumped that guy. And there was a manager one night, who came to see the show, and I was playing Mrs. Potiphar, and she signed me.
And really, from there, I know there was a bit of off Broadway, right? There was
Off,
a few more.
Broadway. Yes,
There's
the funnest one.
some commercials. Your first screen credits, as is required for anyone living in New York at that time. A couple episodes of Law and Order, and then a movie called Center Stage, in which 25 years ago, you played this young lady, Eva Rodriguez, rebellious but very gifted young dancer, who is one of a group of first-year students at a New York Ballet Academy, of which only 3 will be chosen to join the company. This is Nicholas Heitner's directing it, great theater director. Many real dancers were cast, I know, including you, choreographed by Susan Schroman. Like, this was no joke. What was that first film experience like for you?
Everything about Center Stage was meant to be. I was starting to doubt whether or not I had made the right decision in pursuing acting. Yes, I was working. I was booking commercials and episodics for Law and Order. I thought I was making it. I'm like, I booked Law and Order, you guys. But dance was still such an innate part of me, and for so long that I needed a way to say goodbye to it that just felt, finite. Booking Center Stage was kind of kismet, the way we say in the dance world, because it was a way for me to say goodbye to this part of my life that had helped me so much, and a way to say hello to this other one that I was doubting whether or not it was the right path for me. And Center Stage really sealed those two decisions for me very well. And Nicholas Heitner, Miss Saigon, Madness of King George, Object of My Affection, such a great director. And I ended up having a wonderful time, a dream come true to be working in Lincoln Center. Because I remember being a little girl with my grandmother when we would go to the city, and I would tell her, one day I'm going to be in there. And she would be like, okay, my love, that's really good. And there I was shooting a film in Lincoln Center. Yeah.
So you say it was closing a chapter, and it was for 24 years, but obviously dance comes back in Amelia Perez, which we will talk about. But one thing that it's interesting how things that you did early on maybe end up being useful for other things. You once said that ballet sort of trained me for action, which was a very big part of your life for a lot of years after that. Do you want to expand on that?
I don't think I would have been able to book Avatar and Neytiri if it wasn't for my ballet background, or Gamora, or Colombiana. I really do feel that. Thank you, the one person that saw Colombiana. I'm really proud of that movie. It gave me such a deep connection with my body. And as I was learning more about like the craft of acting, it was clear to me that in order for it to work for me, I needed to always bring my body into everything that I did and to every character that I would inhabit. And ballet was the tool. That I was able to utilize, and it catapulted me into a career in this genre of action and science fiction. So I'm so grateful for that.
Now, it's interesting because there were a few years there between Center Stage and then the action really taking off for you. And I'll just note the eclectic, a few of the things that were in there. 2002 Crossroads with you and Britney Spears. Drumline, and then one that I know that you're very proud of that was probably didn't get the audience it deserved, Haven, a movie in 2004. But right around that...
Saw it? Love that movie. It's one of my favorites.
Now, there was a moment, though, where it seems like the whole trajectory to this point tonight could have been a bit derailed, and I don't know, you'll tell me if that's overly dramatic, but you go and get cast in your first like huge movie, which was Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. This is the first one of those Pirates movies. You're Anna Maria, the pirate who confronts, even smacks Jack Sparrow for stealing her ship. This was shot in, I think, 2003. It wasn't a big role. You weren't yet really widely known. And you've said that at the end of that experience, you were almost ready to like quit.
Well, it was such and later I just, it does have a happy ending. 'Cause I met Jerry Bruckheimer and it was, water under the bridge. But it was my very first time experiencing a big like set. And it was just big in every way of how not to be big egos and big unorganization. Is that a word? Did I just make up that
Yes.
word?
Yeah,
It's a chaos, like that big chaos. And great things came of it, great performances. It became such a prolific movie for so many actors. But if you were sort of in that supportive, tier, it was just very easy for you to be forgotten or to be misplaced or to be sort of handled in a way that just wasn't delicate or professional. And I didn't appreciate that at all. And I remember thinking, God, if it's going to be this way, Hollywood can keep it. Like I don't need this. I'm going to go back to New York and do my little independent movies and I'll do a soap opera or something. I didn't, And later that year, I end up booking a film called The Terminal.
I'm gonna forgive me. I want to stop you there, just because what we're gonna do is take a quick peek right now at clips of Zoe in Center Stage and in Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, and then we will pick up the story there. So, from a downer of an experience, you were saying The Terminal comes along, and can you just remind folks who was involved with The Terminal?
A very up-and-coming director called Steven Spielberg. And he completely just changed my whole perspective on how to be big, how to do something of that kind of category and manage it with kindness and mindfulness, and just celebrate the core reason why we make films, and it's just to connect with people. And I had such a wonderful time. And Diego Luna, who had such a wonderful actor. He and I were like these young cats that were just, given this opportunity to be in The Terminal. He had done a very remarkable movie called Y Tu Mamá También. And from that movie, Steven just, loved his performance and gave him the job. I just sent a tape. So, because Pirates wasn't even out. And I guess Steven thought that I had what it took to play this INS officer. But I remember he was just so sweet. He would invite us to set, even on days that we weren't shooting. He would always extend this courtesy invitation. And I was too insecure to accept it until one day I finally did. And I show up in my sweatpants and I had a juicy suit. Back then they were very in. And my Uggs, it was like the most expensive freaking boots that made me look like a camel, but I bought them. And I show up in my juicy suit and my Ugg boots, and I just sit next to him. And all day, in between shots, he's always, searching through his like iPod. Back in the day, remember those big iPods and that were like rotary phones, like. You were like looking for playlists and stuff. And he would give it to me. He's like, pick a song, because he would have these big speakers. And he would play music for his crew while they're setting up for the next shot. And I remember one day I saw this name, Nino Rota. And I picked a song from Nino Rota. It ended up being La Dolce Vita. And I remember asking Steve, and I'm like, who are all these people? And he goes, oh my God, it's the Nino Rota. He made scores such as the score of The Godfather and all of the Fellini movies. And I was like, who's Fellini? Like, I had no idea. I mean, I did, but I never watched anything there. But after meeting Steven and sort of being mentored by him throughout that shoot, I remember he said something I never forgot. He goes, "In order for you to know where you're going, you have to know where you came from." And that just gave me that message resonated with me because it meant that I needed to know the history of cinema in order for me to understand what type of cinema I wanted to be associated with, and who are the greats that I would want to model after. And so then after that, I remember I saw all the Alfred Hitchcock movies, all the Fellini movies, and yeah.
Off to the races, yeah. Now, it was not long after you made The Terminal that you first, I believe, heard about a project that would not come to screens for years and years, but was definitely going to be a big part of your life, and that was Avatar. I think, though, what I didn't know, and I don't think a lot of people know, is that you initially read for a different James Cameron project, right?
For Akira. Right, what is it called? Alita. Ay, Dios mío, perdón.
And so just how did that even come about? And what was the initial, did you guys?
I think they were just misdirecting you in order for Jim to keep some kind of secrecy. They would send sides of this other project that he knew that the media knew about, but in reality he was trying to cast Avatar without anybody knowing. And I remember that there was a casting director, Mally Finn, the late Mally Finn, who was such a wonderful casting director. She kept asking me to come in and put me on tape, and they would make me read this futuristic robot that had feelings, and I'm like, oh, okay. But then I would come back and they would say, well, then just make these sounds, and they would record me making like these ow whatever sounds, and then she would tell me, come in like your ballet gear and just do a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll just record you dancing. And I remember one time they asked me, like, have you ever been to like a tropical country? Like, are you afraid of the jungle? And I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, I thought this was about the future. Like, why are we going into the past or something? But little did I know is that he was looking for Neytiri.
And you, I guess it sounds like you booked it in 06. Movie doesn't come out till 09. And a lot of stuff was going on in those intervening years, including moving to LA, where you had never lived before, right? And I guess you weren't so sure about LA at first.
Well, I'm gonna make a confession, and hopefully nobody from Disney and Avatar will come after it. But I moved and I bought a house in Los Feliz right when I booked Avatar. I just bet on myself. I'm like, I know this is going to be a great experience and a great project. I'm working with my idol. Like, I would watch Terminator from the moment I was 6. I know I was not supposed to be watching it at 6, but those were the 80s. It was always like, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun. And it was such an impactful film for me. So I've always had an affinity for James Cameron films. And here I am working with one of my idols. I bought this house. I know he's incredible. He's incredible. And I bought this house, but I told them that I was not a local hire. And because I didn't know how to drive, so I needed a driver. If I was a local hire, that meant that I needed to get a license and drive myself to work, and I was petrified of driving. I was such a New Yorker, and I also I wasn't sure. I'm like, if it's not going to work, then I'll just I'll fly back to New York. But it did. I ended up having such a wonderful experience, and to know that, by booking Avatar, I was going to get to work with Sigourney Weaver. It's Ellen Ripley, y'all. Like, she's the most badass mom in space. It was just incredible.
Neytiri, 9-foot-tall, blue-skinned Na'vi princess, hunter, and warrior from Pandora who falls in love with an outsider, Jake Sully. This was going to be a very, a scale that probably, I don't know, in some ways made Pirates of the Caribbean even seem not, I mean, was that, how would you compare it to the scale of Pirates?
No. I feel like The Terminal and Pirates felt like bigger films. Avatar was shot, and the way that it was conducted was such an intimate type of setting that it almost felt like it was theater like. Performance capture, I really do hope that all organizations are able to understand how much freedom it gives an actor, but also gives the actor the ability to take proprietorship of their performance. Like, it's not that it's manipulated by the animators. It's nothing like that. Whatever you put on a floor, that is recorded, things are just painted over your performance, but it's you, it's the way that you move. So we trained for 5 months to prepare for Avatar. Everything about that experience felt like going to school. It was so beautiful. I worked with Cirque du Soleil, performers that were former Olympian champions in gymnastics and archery. I had a sifu. Like, I had a coach in wushu. I also took martial arts for 5 months. It was the most intense thing because Neytiri, the Na'vi, were so specific that it was not about learning karate. It was about learning, wushu. Because with wushu, it's the difference between the way Jackie Chan performs his martial arts and the way Jet Li performs. They're very different styles because it's two different forms. And the way that, the form that they all had us rehearse was through wushu. So gracious. And we were riding horses, Frisian horses, by the way, that were these big Scottish, horses with no saddle. We were learning, everybody was learning archery, but the way that the Na'vi learn how to throw, their ¿cómo se dice? Perdón, es que el español siempre me gana. Archers, we became professional archers. I felt like I had gone to like a form of Juilliard,
Yeah. Well, another thing about Avatar, I just have to bring up. I mean, people who have seen James Cameron interviewed or met him or whatever, and know that he made The Terminator and some of these movies, I think they think of him as like this alpha male guy, and yet you have said, and it makes sense when you think about the Sigourney Weaver roles and things that he's done, that there's also he's very in tune with his feminine side. You've said, what is that? How would you explain a little bit about that?
Well, he is a bear. I'm not very much an alpha, very curious human being, a scientist. Is the best way that I can describe James Cameron. He's curious about something and he figures it out. That's what he does. And I feel like science is like that. Scientists are like that. I think that someone needs to be in tune with their feminine side to capture the female experience from the perspective of a mother, from the perspective of a daughter, from the perspective of a woman that feels overlooked or forced into a life that is not her own. And all of these characters, they're easy for James to conceive or to understand. And I don't know if it's the fact that he most likely had a very beautiful relationship with his mom. And he's been married so many times, I guess. I don't know. And I'm just saying something that he said before. So I'm not, disclosing secrets here, but and he's a father of many daughters. So there's a sensitive touch to this toughness that is James Cameron. And when he delivers a woman in his stories, these women don't feel weak just for the sake of making women weak. These women feel weak because they have a journey and they have a challenge that they have to overcome. And the women, are the ones that are feeling weak, but not James writing them. I I hope this makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's now take a look at Zoe in both The Terminal and Avatar. So it was while you were shooting Avatar that you first heard there might be an opportunity to be in Star Trek as well?
I mean, my team at the time, they had been in conversations with J.J. Abrams, and I guess so was James Cameron. And I think I was just so into Avatar world that I was not really entertaining anything beyond that. Maybe there was an email that I overlooked from my team saying, "Hey, J.J. Abrams, Star Trek." I was like, "Star what?" And I remember Jim walks up to me one day at work and says, "I have something for you, and I think you're going to be really happy, and you're going to owe me." And then he walks away, and an hour later, J.J. Abrams shows up, and here I'm seeing like this wonderful filmmaker with Jim, and I'm like, "What's going on? And why is he smiling at me like that? Like, what's going on?" And little did I know is that he really wanted to speak to me about the role of Neo Uhura in the new Star Trek movie that he was so excitedly gonna direct, and he had written the script. So yeah, I remember calling my mom going, "Well, I played an INS officer that was a Trekkie, so I saw the documentaries, and I remember you used to watch Star Trek on UPN 9." And you told me about it, that you used to love Star Trek when you were a little girl, and she would see it in Dominican Republic when it was dubbed, and it was Viaje a las Estrellas. But by the time I was born, Star Trek was something that my folks would watch. I wasn't really that much into it, though I had a great deal of respect for Gene Roddenberry and just the whole community of fans of Star Trek that were generational. I'm such a sucker for rituals that involve a grandparent, a parent, and a child. I find that quite fascinating. And Star Trek kind of brought generational families together. And so I sat down with JJ. He told me about Star Trek and what he was intending to do. And I acted as if I knew everything that he was saying. But I just went home, and I remember I took Neytiri off for a minute, and that whole weekend I just saw so many shows of Star Trek and documentaries and interviews about Gene Roddenberry and about Nichelle Nichols. I needed to understand if I was going to embody this character that this wonderful actress had done so well. What was it about her that I was going to take on? And what was it about Nyota Uhura that I can give myself the freedom to be nuanced about? So I remember I spoke to JJ about that, and I said, what if I fail? What if I don't do a great job of that everybody's expecting me to do? I don't want to step into someone else's shoes if they've done it so well. And so he invited Nichelle to set, and meeting her was incredible. I remember she was so sexy and just so confident and such a rebel. I don't know. She's sitting right next to me, and everything that she would do, she would talk to JJ like this, and I would kind of go. And she would whip her hair, and I wanted to be Nichelle.
Well, it's amazing to think that, let's talk about your 2009, because Avatar shot first, but Star Trek came out first on May 8th, 2009. That was a big deal for the whole summer. Then on December 18th, 2009, Avatar comes out, and, everybody knew it's the guy who made Titanic. It's probably going to find an audience, but I don't know if even you would have imagined how massive that audience was. $2.7 billion worldwide, making it the highest grossing film of all time. Also, obviously all kinds of conversations about 3D and VFX, and just like right at the cutting edge, nominated for the Best Picture Oscar, and certainly brought you to the largest audience that you would have ever had, or anyone had clearly had in a movie up to that point. I guess I wonder if you remember what you were doing that weekend when it came out, and really like probably watching in real time, like as your life permanently changed.
I think the very first weekend that Avatar came out, it wasn't a big splash. We were expecting, Flight of the Concord, like we were expecting something to be. This was a movie that just grew gradually. Every weekend, the numbers just kept doubling and tripling, and all this momentum just kept growing, and it was because people had seen it, and then they would come back and bring friends and bring family members, and just see it for a second, third time, and it became a really special experience for people. I wasn't expecting that. I just kept, every weekend I was like, what? But so and so opened. Like we've been out there for 2 months, and it just kept, Sorry, tonight I'm a little off. My English has left the building. I'm trying to get it back, you guys. So at one point I'm gonna need a translator.
It's all
It
good.
was it was a surreal experience, and I don't know if that I was too young and I was just too innocent, and innocence can sometimes be blissful. I was just taking it as it all came, and I was happy to just be a part of it. I was happy to be alive. I was happy to have worked with James Cameron, and I remember feeling hungry too, like what's next?
Well, I was going to ask,
You know?
how early on did you know that there would be multiple? Like, did you know when you signed up for the first one that there was going to be additional installments?
I mean, when you sign up for these films, and studios and filmmakers are quite hopeful for their projects, they tend to lock you in for multiple, for sequels. I'd made that contract with them, but not really knowing what I was doing. I was 27. I moving to Hollywood for the very first time, booking Avatar. I remember when the movie came out, and I think we were in London, and the success of it was just hitting us in stride. Jim looked at me and said, I already know what we're going to do for the sequel.
Wow.
And that made me almost cry, because it's so funny that he had said that, because in that moment, I was kind of sad, thinking I'll never go back to Pandora again. And he was already there. He was like, "Oh no, I'm not even
Little
here.
did
I'm
you
already
know."
there." Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that even though you've done these massive, massive movies, you've also continued to intersperse with them these more indie, or sometimes art house, smaller scale, passion projects. One of them I think we should talk about is Colombiano, which you brought up. And I wonder if you can just share, I guess this would have been your first solo lead of a movie, right? Why was that something that at the, at the moment your career is exploding, you wanted to make sure you were doing?
Well, why not?
No, I'm for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that's more the question that I was asking myself. Why not? And there's just something about the lone wolf, that just speaks to me,
Should we
and
just tell people? So, young girl who witnessed her parents' murder and grows up to become an assassin.
yeah.
Sorry, please.
Una sicaria. But the Femme Nikita kind of film genre I've always loved. I also saw a film called Leon, the Professional, that moved me in such a way. And when I saw Nikita, his earlier work, I loved. If I have to be personal about it, I think I've always been trying to understand and manage my grief, You know, my loss, losing my father at such an early age, has probably been the most impactful thing that has happened to me up until now. When the unimaginable happens and you're too young to understand, you will process it forever. And these characters, I've played certain characters throughout my career where we are tackling that. You know, first it was in Colombiana, and then I did a mini series for Netflix called From Scratch, where I wanted to understand for Colombiana because it happened to her when she was so young, and she felt so many emotions at such intense degrees that I was really curious about them. And then I was also wondering, I'm like, should I have felt that grief in that intense way? Because I know I didn't. I found solace in so many things around me, but Cataleya didn't. So I really dove deep into her world. And then when I played Amy and From Scratch, it was more about trying to understand what my mother went through when she lost her partner. I know what life was like losing a father, but I never knew what it was like for her losing the love of her life. And by playing this woman, it gave me a deeper understanding of what her journey must have been like. So I am constantly trying to heal myself through the work that I do.
It's really interesting. Thank you. We are going to now take a look at Zoe in Star Trek and Colombiana.
Forgot that scene. Jesus
Powerful.
Christ. Sorry.
Wow, very powerful. There, you know, speaking of other kind of gems that maybe didn't get as much attention as they should have, there was a movie made with a very talented filmmaker named Scott Cooper called Out of the Furnace, which was really terrific. And it's you, Christian Bale, Sam Shepard, just like this crazy, crazy cast. Casey Affleck. You are playing the ex-girlfriend of this Pennsylvania steelworker, played by Christian Bale, who's trying to locate his missing brother, Casey Affleck's character. I wonder, in that case, you know, again, you probably could just as easily have been saying, or your representation could have been saying, like, Zoe is not interested in smaller parts. This is it's a smaller supporting part, but it's in a amazing movie. What was it that made you sign up for that one?
I mean, that cast is incredible. The story was very compelling. This was post 2008, where we know we went into a very big recession, and we witnessed in our own way how so many of us here across our country were affected by this. This was a story that was going to give me an experience into that. And it came in a package of a wonderful filmmaker that had done a great movie with Jeff Bridges, Crazy Heart. And it was with a great producer who's a very close friend of mine, Robbie Brenner, who right now is running Mattel Studios. And it was the producer behind Barbie. And yeah, Robbie is just a trailblazer. And she was just, you know, she kept calling me, Zoe, this part is really small, but it's such a great script. It's a wonderful cast. We'll fly you to Pittsburgh. I was like, Pittsburgh? We did. We literally shot in the town that the story is based out
Braddock,
of.
right?
Braddock, yeah.
Like, really, like, I think John Fetterman was the mayor of Braddock, who's now gone.
Yes.
But like, this was, I very rarely had, as a journalist, visited sets, but I visited you guys there. That was the real deal. You are
What
like
an impactful
out
experience.
yeah. So anyway, no, it was really amazing to see, and a really good underappreciated movie. Another was the year after. That was 2013. Then 2014 is Infinitely Polar Bear, which is a movie in which you play this woman married to a manic depressive man who tries to win her back after some issues arise. Just since in a moment we are going to show clips of both Out of the Furnace and Infinitely Polar Bear. Do you want to say anything about Infinitely Polar Bear?
Yes, I'm incredibly proud of that movie. I got to work with Maya Forbes, and the story she wrote it. It's based on her life. And though they had lost their dad, Cameron Forbes, this was a love song to their dad because they they grew up with a dad that was broken, and yet they were always exceptionally loved, and they had a buddy in him. And these women went ahead and they went to Harvard and they pursued wonderful careers, his kids. And this man, even though, you know, in the eyes of our system, he was absolutely just fragile, he was such a great person. So everything about that story was deeply compelling for me. I think the idea of working with Mark Ruffalo, I've always been like a fan of Mark. I think he's one of the most multifaceted actors of our generation. And once again, it was going to give me an opportunity to explore the life of a daughter and a father relationship.
Right.
And that's something that I'm constantly wanting to live vicariously through the characters and the stories that I'm a part of.
It's really interesting. Let's take a look at Out of the Furnace and Infinitely Polar Bear. Wow. So, not long after Avatar and Star Trek, which were a few years before the movies that we've just seen clips of, I think you heard for the first time about another franchise, a big production, which would have been the Guardians of the Galaxy and Gamora, and yet it was not an immediate yes.
No, no, no. By the time James Gunn came around with Guardians, I was very much like, oh no, 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 because I've done, you know, Star Trek and Avatar, and I was being offered all these films that were just only in science fiction genre, you know, films, and I was afraid. I was afraid of being typecast, but there's this thing that it doesn't matter where the story lives. If it's a beautiful, compelling story and the filmmaker feels super duper legit, fuck it. Just, you know, it's like, I'll keep renewing my passport to go to space. Everything about that movie felt out of the ordinary, just felt very nuanced, and just like James Gunn is, you know, he's just, you know, he was the Scooby Doo guy when I met him, and I'm like, how is this director that does animation and kid films is going to take on this movie, which is so raunchy, by the way, and funny, but it has so much heart. There was just something about it that I felt people were going to get whiplash from it. And the story read exactly how he was able to, you know, realize it on screen. And he's an incredibly sensitive director, a person as well, and works really hard. Has a very dark sense of humor, but he's very goofy and geeky. So it was, but I honestly believe that there is no Guardians of the Galaxy without James Gunn.
Now, another thing that I think might have been appealing was that she was not the only female action star in this galaxy, right? This is I mean, it's a whole ensemble of colorful, literally characters. Can you just talk about also, though? You've spoken in the past about reasons why you might be at different, maybe less so today, I don't know, but at one time you've said there might be reasons why you were particularly drawn to the action genre rather than other types of movies.
Can you give me a hint?
Yeah, well, I think you've
I'm
said
46, right? So
Sure.
I'm a little
Well,
late.
no. I mean, I think you've said that you grew up with dyslexia, right? You've talked about, and ADD and
Yes,
might
yes,
have
yes.
reflected that, right?
Okay, we're gonna go there. Absolutely.
I don't know
No,
if you
I
would.
love it. I think it's important. I just thought we were gonna go somewhere else, and I was ready for that too. But no, it's I didn't think that I was cut out for heavy dialogue, dramatic films. And I thought, well, this is the genre that I'm going to explore and be really good at. Let me just go full throttle in it. But there were moments in which I wished that the characters that I was playing were able to share more about themselves because I care so deeply and I build such an intense fundamental backstory for every character that I make, whether it's just a two-scene character in a film like Out of the Furnace, or I'm playing Maggie in Infinitely Polar Bear, or I'm Gamora. Like, I do write pages. I buy notebooks, and I have a notebook for every character, and I journal. I don't journal that much for myself, but I make all my characters journal because I need to feel their history in me, on me, and but I find a way to manifest it physically if the lines aren't there for the character. But as the years went by, in a project after project, I wanted to go back to that kind of, or I've never really had it up until Lioness. You know, where a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the information, a lot of the story is propelled by this character that is pushing it forward. I wanted to know whether or not I had it in me to do that.
That's great. So in there are so many interesting ones, we can't touch on them all, but I'll note after that is Ben Affleck's movie, They Live by Night. There's, you mentioned From Scratch, this series that you did, limited series with Netflix. And there was, after, as James Cameron had promised 13 years earlier, the follow-up to Avatar. This is 2022, Avatar: The Way of Water. I wonder what it was like to return to a part after that many years of being away from it.
I think it was meant to be. Where you find Neytiri and Jake Sully in The Way of Water, they're a family now. They went from being these stubborn young kids that were rebellious and, trying to find themselves and find each other, to now this established family. And they're the Sullys now, and they mean everything to each other. I don't think that Sam and I would have been able to understand what Neytiri and Jake begin to embark on had it not been for the fact that 13 years was enough for Sam and I to recover from many things, to get married and start a family, and gather enough experience in life to be able to put that into Neytiri and Jake, and it gave way to a deeper experience for us, and a lot, and it gave us a lot more to feel, and a bigger, ¿cómo se dice? ¿Qué es lo que quiero decir? It gave us, thank you. We were able to connect with what Neytiri and Jake were going to prepare to go through. They lose a child in The Way of Water, and Sam and I were having such bad anxiety about that, for Neytiri and Jake. And I think it was the fact that we as parents didn't want to imagine the unimaginable. And letting go, what a fucking experience that was. I don't ever want to repeat it, because it's what you feel as a parent, even if you're just visiting in someone else's life. It's horrendous, and what they go through is incredible. And Sam and I held each other throughout the whole time, that we were doing that.
Over the 13 years since the prior one, had the way of making Avatar movies changed a lot? Had the technology gotten noticeably different or anything, or was it pretty much the way you remembered it from the first one?
I think that the way that the actors go about it has been the same, which is fantastic. From a scientific point, I wish that Jim were here to be able to answer that, and I don't think we would have enough time to, because he starts breaking it down in such technological terms, and it's incredible. It did change a lot. It gave him the ability to advance the technology a whole lot in 13 years. But one thing he realized that he needed to keep was the preparation that the actors needed to have in order for us to get to Pandora.
So let's now take a look at Zoe in two different universes, Guardians of the Galaxy and Avatar: Way of Water. This brings us to Rita Moro Castro in Amelia Perez. We set up a little bit earlier who this woman is, and you know, the journey to from being kind of underappreciated as a lawyer to being caught up in kind of an unimaginable scenario. For you, how did it begin? I wonder. Again, having seen the movie now, it's hard to explain to people. So I wonder what it was, how it was pitched to you. And I mean that in the best way.
It's comedic. My agent Ali Trustman is here. I wish she can actually, recount just the day that they pitched me this. So Jacques Audiard goes to CAA with his new project that he's going to direct. They have a huge meeting. My agents run out and they start calling me incessantly. And I think I was with my children taking them somewhere, so I didn't really answer my phone. But then I look at my phone and I have like 50 missed calls and 10 text messages. We have this conversation. I just hear Jacques Audiard and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. They're like, but wait a minute. We got to tell you what this story is about. And they proceed to tell me it's this drug lord who has always meant to be a woman and, hires this professional lawyer, which will be you, to help him transition. And then you just have to make her disappear. And in exchange, you will have all of this and blah, 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 blah. And this is a musical, by the way, and it's going to be in Spanish. What? Yes. Everything about it was just so different. I was just curious. I wanted to hear it through Jacques' voice. I wanted to hear his words, and I wanted him to walk me through this. On the surface, that's what that film may sound like. Deep, deep down, it's about 4 women, very diverse women, trying to break their own mold and find their most authentic self, learn to love themselves, and find love. In the heart of it, it's just what this movie is. The backdrop, they find themselves in worlds that are unimaginably violent, incredibly sad, impotent worlds, and even though that has never been my life, I've known women that have grown up in these worlds, and I just wanted to be in their shoes for a journey and have Jacques Audiard guide me through it.
And we had Jacques here on Monday night talking about directing this movie, and to make it kind of extra crazy, even on top of just the unbelievable the way it all worked. So he doesn't speak English really or Spanish. So the way he was direct, can you explain just how you all communicated on the set?
I mean, sometimes with sounds. um, he's incredibly animated, and you know, when he talks, he stutters a little bit, even as he's trying to talk in English. But it's also the same in French. He has to move and go smoke a cigarette every 3 minutes, but it has to do with the fact that all that energy, he's just trying to get it to travel all around him, and he's trying to put it out there. um there is an incredible amount of emotion that he always felt around this story. It is a complicated story because we are really challenging ourselves to find a deeper meaning of what redemption may mean to you. It's easy to redeem someone that on paper has done everything right. That's easy. We redeem them and then we go home and we feel better. But when these people have a past that they cannot escape, are they worthy of redemption? Are they worthy of freedom, of finding their voice? And that's the challenge with Emilia Perez. And I accepted that challenge because Jacques Audiard challenged me in Rust and Bone. He challenged me in Deep End. He challenged me in A Prophet. Every time I would see his movies, I feel like there was always a before and after for me. Viewing characters that I would either start judging and end up rooting for. And I felt that Emilia was going to be that because I found myself having a before and after with each and every one of these characters. Communicating with him was extraordinary. There were moments in which we needed assistance, but most of the time, we just relied on the unspoken word because we were synced. There was just a cadence, there was a frequency that we tapped into. There were moments in which I would finish a take and he would be looking at me from Video Village and I'm like, I know. And that was it. And there were other moments in which I needed context. Or there were moments in which I would look at him and go, did you feel that? Or was it just me? He goes, no, I felt it. We were, and it wasn't something that needed to be understood more than it needed to be felt. With Emilia, to me, I just felt it. I felt Emilia Perez, and he did too. And so did Carla, and so did Selena, Adriana, Edgar, the whole cast and crew, all the consultants that we had, all the Mexican dancers that flew in from Mexico to be a part of the Mexican choir that we also worked with, Camille, Clement, Virginie, everybody that was a part of Emilia. We just felt these women and we kept them in our hearts.
And it's, yeah. What's kind of amazing is that on, again, the kind of log line that we were just giving about this movie would not necessarily indicate this, but when we really look at the role that you play in this movie, it's almost like it was the one that everything else was building up to, because you'd never been able to use your native language in a film ever, right? Before this, you had not danced since your first movie that people noticed you in 25 years ago. Singing, I don't know how much of that we'd ever gotten to see
In the shower,
you do,
that's
right?
it.
In the shower. You know, sadly, a lot of the great movies that we've talked about tonight that were not franchise movies had not gotten seen enough. So I don't know that people necessarily knew that this is a kind of performance you would want to do, that you could do so well. I mean, I guess I just wanted to leave it there for you to talk about if I'm over analyzing it, or if it's sort of like you couldn't have designed a better, like teed it up for you in a better way. And obviously you then had to knock it out of the park, which you did, mixing many metaphors here. But just, yeah, I mean, it seems like it was kind of like, this is the role that you were meant to play.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I think timing also is very important. Had Emilia Perez come to my life when I was unprepared for it, I don't think that I would have been able to pour so much of myself into Rita. I needed to have more experience. I needed to feel safe, finally, in my own skin and in my own vulnerability. I think that that's something that I wrestled my whole life. And I always felt like I held back from all the characters that I've played. I've given them a lot, but I always held back. And with Rita, I didn't. And it was the most vulnerable I've ever felt, because this was a woman, a Black woman, living in a country where she feels isolated, underappreciated, overworked, burnt out. And still, she dreams. She dreams of being so much more. And I might have in my life felt strokes of what Rita goes through. And I was just too ashamed to admit, or too tough to acknowledge. And I was just exhausted. So Emilia Perez and Rita came into my life at a point where I was just tired of the facade, but also so hungry to continue evolving as an artist and grow. What is next? Is it done? I'm 46. What am I doing? Do I just, fulfill all of my franchise commitments and then come home? Or do I just go step into the unknown and just take that big giant leap? And I did it. And the biggest thing I needed to do was to not get in my own way. I didn't want to get in my own way. I wanted Rita to be me, and I wanted to be Rita.
It's such a special performance. People have been nuts for it since Cannes, where again the four of you shared the Best Actress prize. It's been just a very eventful however many months since then, and still going. But what it all comes back to is this incredible performance, which we are going to now take a look at. Thank you for the great work and conversation tonight. And now it is a treat to bring out a close friend of Zoe's to close out the evening. Please welcome an excellent actor in his own right, Mr. Rob Lowe.
Good evening, Santa Barbara. It is an honor to be here to celebrate my friend, the great Zoe Saldaña, an actress who has captivated audiences across every genre, as we have seen tonight. Your career is nothing short of extraordinary. We just saw you walk through every element on it. You have brought a depth, a fierceness, I think, and a humanity to every role that you take on. She makes it truly her own. And now, Emilia Perez. I mean, come on. That movie is changing people's lives. In a time where big swings just don't happen, that is a huge swing. And those movies are just, we'll never see another like it. And the fact that it's getting celebrated makes me so happy for the film, for our industry, and specifically for you. Beyond her remarkable work on the screen, we didn't get a chance to talk about much of it tonight. She's a trailblazer. She's a role model. She's a passionate advocate for greater representation in Hollywood. She has opened doors, and she has shattered ceilings, and she has inspired so many with her talent, her resilience, her heart, and she's a great mom. All right, I told you I'd give you a shout out. Her three lovely boys are stand-up boys, the cutest guys ever. Yeah. Huh? Told you I'd give you a shout out. You owe me now. Zoe, your work has entertained us. It has moved us. It has stayed with us long after the credits roll. Your dedication to your craft, your courageous storytelling, and the countless ways that you have elevated film as an art form enable me to present you with the Santa Barbara International Film Festival Riviera Award. Join me in celebrating the amazing Zoe Saldaña.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. I just the fact that you guys are here on a Wednesday night this late. Guys, I don't even stay up this late on a Wednesday night. Unless I'm shooting and you don't want to be in a night shoot with me because I'm not nice. I am, but thank you, Rob. And thank you, Cheryl, for just being wonderful friends. And now we get to call you guys neighbors, and we adore you so much. And we just met you a couple of years ago, and the fact that you guys have become such important people in our lives. Thank you for your humanity. Thank you for your marriage and your love, because it really gives us a beautiful model to follow. And thank you for loving your children the way that you love them, because we're obsessed with our kids the same way. And it's really inspiring. It's funny, when I met you, I was like, oh my God, I loved you in Bad Influence. I'm such an 80s kid. Out of all the movies that I can tell Rob, St. Elmo's Fire, About Last Night, Hotel New Hampshire, right? Come on, dude. Why Bad Influence? I was really embarrassed, but it happened. What an incredible honor it is to be among you all tonight, celebrating our work. The Santa Barbara International Film Festival champions artists who are moving the needle and impacting culture. And I'm humbled to be included. Thank you, Roger Durling. Muchas gracias. To know that you're Latino too, it's an icing on a beautiful cake. It means a lot. This is for artists who have made an impact on cinema. So I think that someone really needs to pinch me. I remember I came here for the first time as someone's guest, and I was deeply moved by the festival, just the commitment, knowing that it was not that far away from Los Angeles, and yet it was such a culture. You guys love cinema, and you celebrated from an artistic standpoint, and that means so much to me, because it reminds me that once all the lights and the flashes go away, what we need to always treasure is the substance. And I remember thinking, one day I'm going to be here. Anyway, every time I get an opportunity to work with a visionary director like Jacques Audiard, I have to pretend to be up for the challenge, because if I really sat down and thought about it, I would never believe that this is my life. So I pretend, I show up, and I get to be a part of something that's truly special. And now I join the past recipients for the American Riviera Award, people who have inspired me. So from the bottom of my disbelieving heart, I am so grateful. This experience speaks to the power of dreaming, of hope. As a kid, cinema was my passport into worlds beyond my own. As a working actor, it's been my passport into characters that challenge me, into narratives that connects us all in ways beyond language, beyond borders, and beyond time. I dreamed of getting to do this as a career, and I'm grateful for every opportunity that I get. If you know my family, you know my drive, determination, and strength are baked in. There are a lot of loving hands that went into shaping who I am today. My beautiful mother, my stepdad, my sisters, and my entire family are all a part of everything that I do. To my mother, my love for you deepens every day. Your love and selflessness have shaped me into the person that I am today. To my sisters, in you, I find solace and strength every day. I feel blessed to be sandwiched between both of you because I'm the middle child. Um, where? Okay. To my wonderful stepfather who lived in a house full of women, I'm so sorry, but you're welcome. I love you. Thanks for being a great dad. In a karmic twist, now I get to live in a house full of boys. So the irony of things. And to my husband, my love, my unwavering support system. Your kindness has been vital to me. Our partnership is my superpower, and I can't believe we get to parent our beautiful boys together. Sai, Bowie, and Zen. Thank you for being extraordinary, for being you. Since I am my mother's daughter, it's no surprise that in my career, I've been unbelievably fortunate to have played a lot of very strong women, women whose skin happened to be my own, or blue, or green, heroic, hopeful, human, mostly, ready to do everything they could to protect their friends, family, and even people they didn't know, people whose skin may have been a different color than their own. As artists, it's important to keep our hearts, ears, and minds open. And I believe our hearts have to lead the way. Compassion and empathy nourish your curiosity. And anytime I approach a script or a character, my curiosity and my heart are the driving forces. As storytellers, we step into another person's life and we learn about them. We are compelled to grow from this knowing, from this experience. I believe that's the beauty of art. It pushes us into other lives, sometimes other galaxies, and it compels us to grow, to learn, and to stretch our hearts to make room for another person's story. I'm really proud that Emilia Perez is stretching people's hearts. Yes, making some uncomfortable at times, but growth isn't always comfortable. This film was a great destination for a journey I was interested in taking, which is to answer this: who is worthy of love? Who gets to tell their story? Who gets to live life the way they want? My conclusion: whoever has the biggest heart. This industry, like life, is ever changing. We continue to push for stories that are diverse, inclusive, and reflective of the world we live in, an ever growing world we want to see. I am grateful to be a part of a movement that celebrates representation and champions voices that deserve amplification. That is certainly something worth dreaming about and hoping for. Thank you. Guys, you feel like my mom. To every woman out there, especially young women, especially women of color, especially trans women who might see themselves in my journey or in this film, know that you belong in every room, every genre. In every genre and in every story, our voices matter and our perspectives enrich cinema. And lastly, I want to share this with you. Our ability to reach unity and diversity will be the beauty and the test of our civilization. Mahatma Gandhi said that, and I believe it from the bottom of my heart. I'm so grateful. Muchas gracias. Thank you, guys.